Welcome to today's show, Buckeye-Film-Breakdowns. Jake, it's Coach Slater. We are here to talk about, the unfortunate thing is we should be planning for how Ohio State beats Ole Miss, Jared.
I know, man.
We're not doing that. That's a bummer.
Yep.
Well, anyway, I will continue to be mad about that. It is a busy time with the transfer portal. We got Texas A&M buying Times Square billboard space for, Brendan Sorsby's it is still very much wild, wild west with this stuff. But I am obviously noticing that it feels like, and I want to get your reaction to this, and we're going to obviously dig into some very specific stuff. We're going to get to some coaching thoughts. We don't really have any rumors, but thoughts. It feels to me like there are teams, like, for example, Indiana. Obviously, A&M has been very active. I haven't really checked the rankings on everybody, but those are the teams I keep seeing pop up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like Indiana's got, obviously, a game that's coming up very quickly, and they're closing a bunch of kids in the portal. And I think what you would talk about, what you would think is, how are they doing this late when they play this weekend or whatever, and Ohio State doesn't play and they're not closing anybody? Is this, when you think about it, is Indiana and really Texas Tech is living off this world as well, but is it just spending aggressively? Is there some Signetti, like, I trust transferring here is going to get the most out of me as a portal player? Where do you land on something? Because I know you wrote the opening drive about Ohio State's philosophy on this. Obviously, the recruiting classes Ohio State brings in, it's more about keeping their guys, and it hasn't been perfect. We can agree about that with keeping some of them, but I do find it a little fascinating with where big programs are. It's not like Georgia and Alabama are closing a bunch of guys either. Mm-hmm. It's like, I noticed, this is a long-winded question, but like, I noticed Indiana for the first time in the 26 recruiting class, kind of a top 30-ish, I think like 31 or 32. I do wonder if Indiana gets to the point that they can't keep doing this and they want to keep some of their own guys, right? Like, obviously, Signetti's only had one real class of his own. I think teams, the biggest programs, are trying to strike that balance between the established programs, right? The really established ones, between keeping their own guys and being selective in the portal. Am I crazy on that?
No, you're not crazy. It's a tough, it's a tough place to live. I mean, we've seen other programs try to live in the space. You look at Colorado when Coach Prime got there, and they were trying to live in that space and live in the portal, and they didn't have as much success as Indiana is having. And so you have to find that perfect balance. I do think it is, people are seeing the success that Coach Signetti's had at Indiana, at James Madison, and they're saying the portal works. My concern with that for Coach Sig is that always going to be the case? What happens when you get this transfer portal quarterback and it doesn't work out? Who do you have behind him that you're developing, right? That is one of the concerns that you have to have when you have that model that you're trying to follow. And I think that's where programs like Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama are stuck, because they see this parity that is happening between programs like Indiana. And now, okay, we have to still recruit at this high level. We've got to go get these 4- and 5-star guys, but we have to combat these schools like Indiana, who are getting these guys that are 23, 24 years old, that are super hungry, and they want to go to Indiana because they know Coach Signetti is going to get us right. But we also want to get those guys too. And so it's a fine balance that you have to navigate. And right now, I just think Coach Signetti is the hot name. I think Indiana is the hot school. And 2 years from now, it might be another, mid-tier SEC or Big Ten school that is the next Indiana, that is the one that ends up taking that mantle. And so I just think it's a tough spot to be in for these big programs, because you're getting Jeremiah Smith, you're getting Carnell Tate, you're getting Brandon Ennis, you're getting Bo Jackson, you're getting Julian Sand. You're not living in the portal to get these guys consistently. You do get a Will Howard, yes, but that's not where you're living every year. Coach Signetti's living in that space every single year, and so they're used to living in that chaos, and they're built for it right now, and that's how they're
Yeah.
operating, and it's showing.
Yeah, it's certainly a way to keep accelerate things, accelerate the timeline. That's what they're looking at. Same thing's going on at Texas Tech. The difference between Indiana, and we'll see what happens with Indiana. They could obviously, as they wrap up their season, whenever that is, either this week or next week, they could have a flood of players leave. Not going to be many players leaving in the middle of a run like this. I mean, Miami's had a few, but not really anything crazy. The teams that are still fighting, even Ole Miss has only had 2 confirmed jump in, but they've only had 1 player set up to leave, whereas Texas Tech has brought in 9, but they've let go of 18. So some of that stuff is certainly going to be interesting to track this year. Like, again, Oklahoma has brought in 6, but let go 20. There's going to be some fluctuation there with Indiana. I do think there are still, like, Josh Hoover going there. I don't think Hoover's as talented as Mendoza. So you are trying to navigate. I think he's a talented player. He's going to be fine. They're going to do well with him. I think he's a little in between the 2 that they have brought in as far as sheer talent goes. And we'll deal more with Indiana after we figure out what they ultimately do with the year and we get into the offseason. But the portal stuff, just fascinating. There's still plenty of quarterbacks. And, like, Miami's an interesting one too, who's sort of been living in that world as well. Some of the quarterbacks, if you look at the positions, quarterbacks are kind of moving quickly here. The names that are kind of still out there that matter for them, as it feels like DJ Lagway might end up being a Florida State kid. We'll see. But a lot of these guys are finding their homes quickly. We saw your boy Ethan Grunkmeyer go to Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. No, not at all.
But yeah, like the top names that are left, Sam Levitt, we'll see where he ends up going. He's technically the top name, the 1 5-star that On3 has for this cycle. But Byron Brown maybe feels like a perfect Miami fit. Honestly, I think that's probably what's going to happen. But Dylan Raiola is still sitting there. And after we saw Sorsby go to Texas Tech, I am curious where Raiola ends up going.
Yeah, that is tough. And who knows what he's looking for? Like, that's the thing. Like,
right.
Because he already got paid handsomely to go to Nebraska. So is he looking for another bag, or is he looking to go somewhere where he's going to get developed and he's going to put himself in the best position to play on Sundays? Like, he is a tough one to figure out. Like, I just don't know what he's looking for at his next stop. And so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about names. First, departing. Obviously, Mylan Graham leaves. Yeah, that's tough. Very talented, top 40 prospect in his class. Thought he was going to find a way to get on the field this year. What's your thought on that, and what's your thought on what this means for others on the depth chart? Because it obviously points to Quincy Porter, right, getting more of an opportunity here is what you would think.
Yeah, I think it points to Quincy Porter. Obviously, it points to the young freshman that we have coming in, and Chris Henry Jr. and Guilford, who's coming in, is very talented.
Yeah.
Brock Boyd, some of these young guys that are coming in. I do think it's a little disappointing to see him leave, because the talent is through the roof. That is somebody that Jeremy and I, we talked about immensely. Like, we were just so excited to have him on board. I just think he struggled putting everything together. And that was something that you could kind of see in practice at some of the spring practices I went to. He had some uncharacteristic drops at times, but then you would just see him route some people up and just make some crazy plays. And you could see that he is very respected and loved by his receivers. You saw Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith all put out tweets, saying no 5, like we didn't want him to go, because he was a huge part of that room in the future. And so it does suck, but it does set up Quincy Porter and some of those young guys to really take that next step. And it also opens up the door for Coach Hank to really dive into the portal and maybe go get somebody that was going to fill that role that Mylan Graham was going to have, where he could probably be the guy that's going to take the top off the defense. You're opening up. You got DeAndre Moore from Texas, who's been coming in, who came in for a visit in the portal. And so those are some things that are going to open up. But I would have liked to see Mylan stick around, but I'm sure he's going to land somewhere and he's going to play well.
So, yeah, you're talking about wide receivers. Cam Coleman, obviously the biggest name on the market. Haven't really heard anything firm about what his leanings are at this point. But, yeah, DeAndre Moore, 4th in the list. But the top wide receivers are kind of starting to move in different directions at this point. So, They're going to have to get aggressive if they want to make that move, and they probably should. Slade, I think they should.
I think they should too.
Solidify it too. I think you get a little nervous there. If you look at this, we have the name that they're most heavily connected to. If you just sort it by, every player looking at the top of the class, it is Chaz Coleman. I mean, I'm a little interested in this one. He's taken a bunch of visits, as any kid should, and is clearly talented. He's Tennessee, LSU. He's going to come to Ohio State, and the feeling is Ohio State will do everything they can to get him. But this is the sort of middle ground that you and I are talking about, and I know Jeremy's been very involved in this too, of like, he didn't really produce much.
Yeah.
He's clearly talented, and he's young, and he can be a big part of things for your future. Like, but there's risk in this.
Yeah.
If a young man comes in, and he's clearly more talented than Bo Atkins. I'm not trying to do that, but like, this is a very tricky one to navigate, because you want to pay good players and all. I get it, but this is one you got to paint the upside.
You have to paint the upside, and you have to look at the domino effect that it's going to have on the roster construction as well. If you pay him X amount of money, you have to think about what you're paying Zion Grady as well.
Yes.
Like, you really have to take a hard look at that, because if you're comparing stats for stats, Zion Grady had a better year than him. Zion Grady played more snaps than him, so he was a little more productive than him. And so, like, that is something that people aren't thinking about in this whole equation. What about the guys you have on the roster? Zion Grady is a huge piece of this puzzle for years to come. So we have to think about that. I think Chaz Coleman his upside is through the roof. This is a guy that, when we missed out on Justin Hill, who ended up going to Alabama from Winton Woods, when he ended up going to Alabama, we missed out on him. I thought in Jim Knowles' scheme, that Leo position that he always talked about, I thought that this was the guy that could play that position to a T. And when we didn't really get him or solidify him, he went to Penn State. I just thought Penn State got a steal. I think this is a guy that you do go get. I really do. But you have to look at the totality of everything when you think about paying him. And I think that's the tough spot when you recruit these great classes that Ohio State does, that this puts you in. Because now I've got to look at how I'm paying Zion. I've got to look at how I'm paying Josh Mickens, who we recruited 2 years ago and who is stuck around and is developing and who is a freak athlete and has all the traits that we thought, Justin Hill and Coleman have as well. And so, like, those are things that you have to take a look at. And so that will be interesting. I'm glad he is going to get on campus. I hope the Buckeyes do make him an offer that he does look at and says, like, hey, I want to be a Buckeye. But it does put Ryan Day and the coaching staff and Coach Pantoni in a predicament. That's for sure.
It is navigating that. And the thing that's tough is people who speculate, talk about this stuff. It's like, we don't know the figure. So you're getting a lot of secondhand information, trying to solve that. And maybe there is some part of like figuring out what Chris Henry's going to make, and Milan's trying to get the same amount of money. And you never know. There could be some of that stuff where guys who are already committed start to feel like, hey man, I'm not appreciated in the same way. And you're really navigating. That's a huge part of this system's danger, I think is probably the way to say it. It's just like how it can rip up a locker room if it's not all navigated correctly. Okay. Let me ask you this. You get 3 guys. I'll give you 3 free tickets in the portal.
Okay.
You really like them. Got to have them. Yeah. Who are you going after?
All right. So the first guy I'm going after is DeAndre Moore. I got to have that guy who's going to take off the top of the defense. He's not the first guy, but he's going to be in the 3. All right. If I had to have like the crown jewel for me, I'm going after Coy Parrish from Minnesota. I think with Caleb Downs potentially going to the NFL, like you said, he's for sure probably going to the NFL. I want somebody that can come in and be a playmaker and fill that role. And I want to bring as much competition to that room with Fahim Delane, with Jalen McClain as possible. And I think with Bryce West leaving, now you have a void in that nickel safety spot. And so I'm a little worried about that spot. Who is going to fill that void? I don't necessarily want to move Jermaine Matthews into the slot. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to do that. And so I know he can do it at a very high level. So if we go get Coy, that allows us some position versatility with some other guys. And then I don't know if there's a name, but I gotta go get the biggest D tackle possible. Right. There's already some guys. Horace Lockett just said he's going back to UCF. So that would have been a guy that I would have been really interested in. But he just said he's taking his name out of the portal and going back to UCF. But we've got to find a way to go get a 330 plus pound big zero shade technique to go eat up double teams, especially if Coach Patricia is still sticking around, because that is something that's vital. So those would be three guys that I would say, like, we got to go get them.
Okay. So Biles is not a big need for you. Linebacker out of Pitt. Okay. Because this is a heavy connection, and obviously the Pick Central background. I'd be interested to see if that one comes together. Any interest in going out after like a Lance Hurd out of Tennessee, the offensive tags, or any offensive line interest that you really feel like they should entertain some things here?
I absolutely. I definitely think they
from
should.
Michigan's another one. Yeah.
I definitely think they should entertain all the offensive line. I don't think you could ever take too many offensive linemen. But for me as a defensive guy, that's the side of the ball that I'm really focused on. And I need somebody that's going to take the top off of the defense. That's what I need. But offensive line for sure. I think finding another tackle, maybe being able to bump Daniels down into guard or Saraville down into guard, and now you can have Luke and Saraville playing guard together with Hensman at center. Go find a true left tackle. Like those are things that I think you could do. Ian Moore showed that he could actually do it a little bit as well. So I think finding somebody in the portal up front will be a priority as well. But if I can get Coy and then some monster nose tackle on defense, I'll be very happy.
Okay. I think you would probably hear a lot of Ohio State fans be like, "Hey man, you watch that offense in the
I know
Miami game?"
I know.
Listen, this is going to be a fascinating discussion. There's still a lot of I know a lot of names have come off the board in the portal, but there's a lot of guys in there that can still make your football team better that are sitting
So many.
there. Be great to get the three you mentioned. Let's switch over and talk coaches on the way out. Offensive coordinator looms. So like the vibe I get is that there would be a real disappointment if they go internal. Do you feel that same vibe if they end up going with an internal name?
I think
within
yes.
reason. Obviously, you respect these coaches, we all do, but I think the vibe is that they need to look outside.
Yeah, the vibe is definitely that they need to look outside. I always err on the side of, promoting coaches who deserve it. And I think some of these coaches do deserve it, but I do understand the idea of being able to bring somebody from the outside with a ton of experience. Obviously it's worked. We had Kevin Wilson, then we had, Chip Kelly, obviously won a national championship with Chip. So I do think bringing somebody from the outside would probably be the most advantageous thing for the program.
Names that make sense. There's been some quality lists put out.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, let's walk through some names that you've heard, you've seen, you've read, and we can just talk about them quickly and see what we think.
Yeah, well, the first one that everybody's throwing out right now is Brian Daboll. Obviously,
is there a connection he has to Ohio State that I don't know about? And did he coach with Ryan Day? Like, what's going on there?
I don't think so. I think the only connection, it's not really a connection, but he did call plays at Alabama in 2017. Like that's the only thing that I know. He went to the Saban School of Rehab, I guess. Like he went there, called plays in 17, then went back to the NFL. So I think they're saying like Coach Day can be that for him again. So he could come here for a year or two and then go back. I don't know. So that's always the name that gets thrown out. I would welcome it. Obviously, he's been an NFL head coach. He obviously became a head coach for a reason. I mean, you cover a lot more things in the NFL than I do. You would know way more about him. But that's the first name that always gets thrown out is Brian Daboll. And I think people say it blindly and they don't really know much about him.
I don't think they do. I certainly think there have been good moments for Brian. Obviously, I thought he worked really well with Josh and they established some nice rapport, especially inside that like old Patriots, Perkins, Earhart system stuff that was very timing regulated. I think he can coach. I feel like he's an NFL guy. I feel like he got his
Mhm.
taste of college ball in 17. And if you go back and look at it, he had spent 3 years as he got a quick chance to call plays in like 2010 or 11. And then he spent, actually, I mean, it might have been more like 2012. Then he went and was the tight ends coach in New England for 3 years, and he just wanted to call offense. And he went to Alabama. If you think about it, how do I get myself in a position to show people I can call plays again? Well, you go to Alabama, you work with Saban. Like, this doesn't feel, it feels to, just to me personally, like there was enough success for him between his Josh Allen time and his New York time that he could probably take a year, be an analyst somewhere in the league, and stick around. I personally would be surprised to see him go back to college football. I just don't think that's in his blood that way. So
Yeah.
I don't personally see that as a very likely outcome. What I would like is somebody, and you could talk me into Tommy Reese, who's now in whatever situation the Browns have now put him in. I don't know what his contract says, if they're going to let guys out of contracts. Got to figure all that out as they hire a new head coach. And I'm sure the Browns will kind of backhandedly entertain the idea of interviewing him. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they do like him. But I've
Yeah.
always felt like Tommy is a college guy, and it was going to work his way back there and potentially, like, because he's interviewed for jobs at the college level recently, interviewed at
Yeah.
UCLA. He's been around interviewing down there. So if most of these jobs have filled themselves up, going to Ohio State for a year or two would make a lot of sense to me. Work with Jeremiah, work with a good offense, get your reputation where it needs to be, and then you're one of the young candidates for a serious job. That one would make some more sense. I know there's some other young ones that you've come across that we could at least chat about.
Yeah, so Tommy Reese was going to be the next one I brought up. I can get behind that one a little bit more, like you said. Obviously, with his NFL experience and the fact that he's young, I got to see him on the recruiting trail, recruiting Ryan Montgomery. I was a little back and forth on him a little bit, but then I got to see him, interact when he was when I went to Notre Dame, when he was coaching at Notre Dame. I got to see him interact a little bit there, and he changed my perception of him a little bit, and so that's somebody that I could get behind. Another name that I'm looking on this list that is somebody that I think could be good. I personally think we need a younger guy. I know
Yeah.
that everybody says we need somebody older and experienced. I think we need younger with experience and energy that's relatable to the kids. I think I'm gonna butcher his last name, but Nathan Shieldhouse, or however you say his
Yeah,
last name,
you're right.
from the Rams passing game coordinator. He played at Illinois. He coached at Iowa State under Matt Campbell. He's been with the Rams for the last 2 or 3 seasons. We know most people under the McVay tree know how to coach football.
Yeah.
They are well respected, and he's coming from an offense that is going to spin the football. I mean, that is something that they are going to do. He's very smart. He helped create the software that is helping them, innovate the way that they put together and manage their practices. Like, there's just so many different things that they're doing with the Rams that would make him an intriguing candidate for me. The only issue is, what position are these guys going to coach? When you look at him, you look at Tommy Reese. I know they have the unlimited coaches. I just don't know if Coach Day is going to operate in that space. Like, I don't think, if I bring in a young guy, I want him
Yeah.
coaching a position. And so what space are they going to operate in that area? So that is a guy that I think would be a fantastic hire. Obviously, I don't know if he has any interest in coaching in college again, because
Yeah.
recruiting can be a burden. The next name on here is Press Taylor. He gets brought up every single year, because of the connection with Coach Day. He coached with him when he was with the Raiders, the Eagles.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's with the Bears now. You see the success and the turnaround that Ben Johnson has had with Caleb Williams. Obviously, there is a connection now too with JT Barrett to the Buckeyes. And so this is somebody that gets brought up on a consistent basis. I do think that this would be a good fit as well. Coach Johnson and Coach Day both have a connection. They work together at Boston College. And so I think this is a really, really good fit. If you're looking at a younger NFL guy, I think Press Taylor is like the ideal fit when it comes to the connections, when it comes to the comfort, when it comes to just knowing him. I think
Mhm.
that would be like the ideal fit for Coach Day. And I think having a younger guy for me, like if we had to pick an NFL guy that is younger, that has a connection to Coach Day, like this would be where I would kind of lean to. But again, what position does he coach? So that's something that you just kind of got to work through.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of interesting. I know you mentioned Garrett Riley too. Obviously, a guy who is dealing with reputation damage control because of what happened at Clemson. I certainly think there are fair questions to be asked about that, but there's been a really good track record of success.
Oh yeah.
Even like the year before, that offense was far better than whatever happened to Cade Klubnik this year. I mean, just kind of off the rails, one of those disaster seasons they put together. But that's another one that kind of rings interesting.
Yeah. And then Joe Moorhead is like the last name that I would like really take seriously.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the older experience. Well, and Kevin Wilson too is another name that I would take seriously. But Joe Moorhead is a name that always gets brought up. He is actually starting to see some improvement at Akron. They just finished 5-7 this past year. Best record they've had in a while after going 2-10 his first 2 years. I think 4-8 last year and then 5-7 this year. I don't know if he wants to go back to being a coordinator because once you're in charge for a long time, it's hard to just say, okay, I want to take a back seat. And so that's another name that gets brought around. Obviously, I would love to have him. I think he's a fantastic coach. He knows how to beat Ryan Day. Obviously, he did it at Penn State. He did it at Oregon as well. I think he's a wealth of knowledge that Coach Day would definitely trust and be able to walk away and fully embrace being the CEO with him there. And so that's the one guy that I think would be able to do that. And then Kevin Wilson is another name that I do think he would welcome back just because that is a familiar face. And Kevin Wilson's at that stage in his career where, he's been in Columbus for a while. I believe he's an analyst now at Oklahoma. He's in his early 60s. Like, he knows the game like the back of his hand. They are going to spin it. He would fit Julian Sand very well. The offense would be definitely humming, and the offensive line would get coached up. He would be able to slide right in with whatever position group they need him to coach. And that is one guy that I would feel comfortable with. Absolutely. Like no question about it. I would feel comfortable with Coach Wilson because his familiarity with Coach Day in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, they've done a nice job. I know on the way out, you had heard Bobby Carpenter mention something about Patricia. We haven't heard anything else other than just Bobby talking about this, right?
Yeah. So on the radio today, and Bobby Carpenter is really strategic with his words. He tries not to put too much out there, but he did, make a comment that there will be some NFL interest for Coach Patricia on the defensive side of the ball. And then Coach Patricia puts out his little Instagram post today and was just so appreciative for Ohio State. And so Buckeye fans are taking it as like a farewell. Obviously we don't know. We don't know if that's going to happen. But if it does, we can't. It's hard to expect Coach Patricia to be here for a long time. He's an NFL guy. He hadn't coached in college since he was at Syracuse as a GA. Right. So we cannot expect him to be here forever. And if he does leave, Coach Day will find the right guy as a defensive coordinator. There are some people that are analysts on the staff right now. One of those guys being Josh Boyer, that could potentially be a defensive coordinator that could be ready to go. And there's young guys that they would probably be upset that we could hire from within, and Matt Guerrieri, but he would be fully capable of running this defense at an extremely high level. So like, those are just some things that we hear. We don't know if he's actually going to leave. I hope he sticks around for the next 5, 6, 7 years and he just rides out into the sunset as a Buckeye, but we'll see. But Bobby Carpenter got those wheels turning for Buckeye Nation today, and it's all over.
This came after
media.
What Bobby said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, reading it doesn't sound like a guy who's coming back. I'm going to be honest.
I know, man. I know.
I feel like that would have leaked by now, though. That's the only hesitation I have, is feeling like that would have leaked. Okay. Well, listen, a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts. We're going to keep you updated. And obviously, once we get whoever they make the choice of, if Patricia leaves, they go the DC route, whoever they go with on the offense side, we'll do some film content on what those coaches live in, what they like to do, all of that. So, we'll keep you updated, man. That's the goal here. Transfer portal, coaching decisions. We'll get to reviewing the season at some point once the madness of all of this slows down a little bit. And obviously we'll talk about the outcomes of the games this weekend too. So plenty of Buckeye Film Breakdown content to come your way for Coach Slate. Jeremy will be back with us on our next episode, getting his whole setup squared away. Got to get all the new gadgets put into place. So he'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be ready to go and have plenty of content for you midweek. So for today's show, that's a wrap. We appreciate you guys being here. We say, go Bucks.